There we go. Do you want to start off, Catherine, or?
Yeah, I can do. Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this webinar. We put this on between us because it's something that we are kind of encountering a lot more with assessments now more than anything, but we're encountering it with working with lots of different clients. For those of you who haven't met me, my name is Catherine Jones. I'm one of the head instructors for Mantrailing UK, but I'm also the business supervisor. If you email or message about anything, you usually get to me. I'm sat in my office going stir crazy in the heat. So I'm glad it's cooled off now, but I've been training now for about 3 years. I've been instructed for about 3 years. I've been training a bit longer than that, but my background is in security and protection dogs anyway, so I'm not new to this. Me and Emma actually did the course together, so that's how we know each other. We live half across the country away from each other, but we try and meet up at least a couple of times a year to trail and actually have fun with our dogs. I'll pass over to Emma.
Hiya, so I'm Emma. I run Pulse for Sports based in North Yorkshire. I'm also one of the head instructors for Mantrailing UK. My background kind of lies a bit prior to this in rescue. So I worked in a rescue for quite a lot of years, where I picked up quite a lot of my kind of background with dogs and behaviour and things like that. And then I became a Mantrailing UK instructor, similar to Catherine. So 3 years ago, like I say, we were on the same course, but also Mantrailing slightly before that as well. Yeah, kind of we just wanted to come on, and we thought it'd be quite a good kind of discussion point, really. And by the looks of everyone turning up, it's obviously something that everyone else wants to learn about. But it's kind of one of the most important things really within Mantrailing as you start to progress yourselves, of actually not always just trusting our dogs, making sure they've got the foundations in there that we can trust them, but also not just relying purely on the fact that the dog is going to always go from A to B, because in reality that isn't always how trails go. And it's not because the dog is wrong. Often it's actually we're not helping them enough as well, and that we haven't actually put a plan in place. So that's why we've kind of come on to talk about kind of what a plan is, why do we need a plan, what does that look like. And then we've also got a video. It's actually one of mine and my dog Blue's trails. So Blue's been trailing about 2.5 years. I originally started with Charlie, who does still trail with me. He's my older dog, but Blue kind of took over a bit just because of his breeds. He needed a bit more of a job to do. So we're actually going to be looking through one of our trails, who I actually did with Jane Dalton from over in Cumbria with Canine Rescuers, which was, I just thought it was a really good trail, and you'll probably see why, because there was a lot of plans that had to go into it for numerous different things. But I'm basically going to talk you through what I was thinking at the time, and what the plan was and why I thought that, so you can see a bit like what actually does it look like when you implement a plan on the trail. And then we'll also have a little talk about actually what happens when you don't have a plan, because that's also important to kind of know also.
Emma, just mute Nick, or Nick, mute yourself. You got your mic undone and we can hear the wind.
Yeah, I've got Nick
yeah,
talking about wind.
Sorry, Nick.
Yeah, talking about wind, actually in the video is the video that I'll show you. The wind played a huge part in why I needed a plan, so that was quite appropriate. Catherine, do you want to chat a little bit about what do you mean by having a plan?
As well, just caveat before we start, when we talk about Mantrailing, we're talking about in a sports context. We are not operational, with no plans to go operational. The dogs we're training is for fun. We want a plan so they can have success in their trails. This isn't a plan for my dog doesn't find a missing person. Oh God, what do I do? That person's potentially there's issues. That's nothing to do with us. We are for sport. Just to remind people, we're Mantrailing UK, which is all for sport. There might be applications to other things. I don't know. I'm not involved in that world. But what we're talking about is a plan within this aspect of dog training more than anything, within this aspect of this. So when we talk about a plan, we're talking about what are you going to do when that dog's trailing changes, or when the dog shows you different behaviors, or the dog looks at you and goes, I don't know where that trail is, or when you believe that dog's no longer on the trail. You're planning for when things aren't going how you expect them to go, or for when that dog doesn't understand the game at that point, or doesn't understand what you expect of it. You've gone in a different environment, an urban environment. It's used to rural. Dogs now going, what do you mean I can't cross the road? Like, we just normally shoot off the right hand side. What do you want me to do? You've got so far down the trail, The dog's looking a bit confused. You're thinking, well, we're about 300 meters in now. We should have found somebody by now. Have I missed something? You're going back through your head, and you're thinking about all these things when you're trailing. Trailing isn't just getting from A to B, it's A to Z with all different stops on the way. And those little stops are the little components within man trailing. Did I go right on the start? Has the dog picked up another scent as he started crittering? Has the dog lost a scent and trying to find it? Is it casting? What behaviors are they doing? And when we talk about a plan, we're talking about all those little components within the trail are the plan. And you go, well, my dog seems lost a trail. Do I take it back a junction? Do I stand still and let it work? Do I give it words of encouragement? Do I turn to the instructor and go, I don't know where I'm going. Can you help me? And the instructor goes, no, get on with it. You have to have those little plans in your head when the dog displays certain behaviors. And it's a bit like all we do with the man trailing. It's a reaction to the dog is how we respond. If the dog doesn't know what to do, then we have to build a reaction to help that dog make the next choice. That makes sense. I think I went a bit roundabout with that one then.
No, I think you explained that quite well. And also it is as a I want to say a fallback plan, but actually you should have a plan even if a trail is A to B, because you should know that actually you're quite happy up to a certain point that your dog is actually happy on the trail, because that's also part of the plan. Because if they suddenly then lose it, where were you happy up to? Because if you're not 100% sure at which decision you were really confident at and you start doubting that, that's the plan's crumbled, because you haven't took any notice of what's been going on prior to that, and you've just been literally relying on your dog, and not actually looking at the full picture. And it can be sometimes quite tricky, particularly when you first start trailing and you're suddenly kind of going into these single blinds a little bit more and not knowing, or even more experience when you go double blind. So just for reference, if we talk about single and double blind, single means that you don't know as a handler but the instructor knows, and a double blind is where no one but the misper knows, so the misper just goes off and hides. But it's really important to be able to actually start clocking all of these different things along the trail so that you can actually help your dog, because like Catherine says, it's not about your dog just being so successful every single trail that it's going to just drag you from A to B. It just doesn't, in reality, that just doesn't happen when it comes to having no help at all. Because you're basically taking away the security net of an instructor, giving you confidence along the way and making you, helping you have good decisions, and confirming when they make good decisions, to suddenly the plan comes into place and you need to implement that. And it's hard. And it's a mind game. I mean, the way that, I don't know if you've got any kind of visualizations of what you use, Catherine, but I tend to do it as a bit like, I put what I think of in my head as little red flags that you can stick in your ground. So every time something happens, I put a little red flag. So my dog's been fine up to this point. I have a quick look around while we're working, see what the environment's looking like, see where I need to go back to, so I know exactly where I need to be. And then I put my mental red flag into the ground of, right, I'm happy up to this point, and I keep moving that flag along while I'm happy. And then I'll get to somewhere, for instance, where, oh, he showed quite a lot of interest there. He looks like he's air scenting, but it could be interest. So I'm going to clock that as well, so I can take him back to there if he then gets lost further down. But I'm not going to make him take that decision, because that's just information that I'm collecting. It's not what my dog is telling me he wants to do at this point. So it's kind of, that's how I work. I kind of put these little flags down. So by the end, I probably have 10, 15 flags in the ground, of where I could potentially go back to, so that I've got a fallback plan. And like Catherine said, literally A to Z. It might be that we go A to B, but it's not always likely that that's going to happen. And it's also really important as well to actually realise and accept that it's actually normal to not just go from A to B. That's a natural thing to happen. It's not because you're a failure. It's not because your dog's a failure. It's just naturally you are relying totally on reading your dog, and there's other things that are going to influence that trail. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Definitely does. I always think it's like learning anything, man trailing, but the hardest thing is we're putting the dog in the driver's seat. So when you learn to drive, you don't get on the motorway and go, yeah, I could have a 10, 16-ton truck. You go, right, I need to learn how to get in the car. How does the key work? I know it's really basic stuff and you think, well, you should know that. But it's almost like the dynamic risk assessment you do when you're driving. What's going on now? Right, I'm on the motorway. I know how to drive a car, but I don't know if the person next to me knows how to drive the car. I've got a passenger with me who's putting their foot on the brake all the time. That's you, the handler, checking the line, being a pain in the butt. And this dog's trying to interpret those things. And then we are also interpret those things. And we're doing those risk assessments for those dogs all the time with their behavior. It's just a dynamic behavior assessment. We're just looking at a dog and going, okay, you just audition that. And like I say, so Emma's visualization is flags. My visualization is, I like the traffic lights. So red is obviously stop, things aren't going right. Amber is I'm not sure, and green is go. So when in my head, my visualization is like, if the dog's on the trail doing well, there's a green aura. The dog's green, it's green, it's green. We're going, good stuff, good stuff. As soon as we hit a junction, dog's not sure, and it might show interest somewhere, that's going to be an amber section. If the dog completely gives a negative on the right hand side, there's nothing there, that's red, let's carry on with the green. And in my head, almost like there's this, like the Mantrailing app, you see the line. That's what I see in my head. It's we're following this line. If we end up coming back on ourselves, okay, so it was amber over there, he didn't give me a yes or a no, he gave me a maybe, so let's check that out and work with it. And that's the way I like to do it. But what you have to be all the time watching those dogs and making those plans, and making sure in the back of your mind you're just thinking, what just happened there? Right, brilliant, it's this. And it is hard with a faster dog. I have some students come to me and go, I didn't see anything, because the dog's just gone. But when it went like that, I have a head tilt to the left and disregarded that area. But that could have been that's nothing, it's a negative. Or it could have been there might be something down there, but I'm just going to carry on a straight line because actually there was a dog going down. It's one of those things. So John just put perfect sense. It's having a situational awareness and having reference points to go back to. Yeah, that's all it is. You are mapping the dog's behavior. You're taking note of the dog's behavior. You're taking note of the environment as well. Have you just hit a junction and suddenly there's a wind coming across and the dog's really pulling to the left because of the wind? You've got to take these little references in, and then you've got to individualize it to your dog. So that's the hard thing. It's not just going, yes, that's a negative. It's individual to that dog and how it trails, and what your dog does in one situation might be slightly different in another. And that's part of Mantrailing. We're building those foundations of not only the dog's knowledge but our knowledge of the dog, and it's really hard to know these tiny little things about your dog, like little ear flicks or little pressure changes on the lead that only you can feel and only you know about. And that's either the dog's yes, it's on the trail, or no, it's not on the trail.
Yeah, it's really interesting as well. And I'd really recommend, if this isn't something you're already doing and thinking about a plan, is actually next time you trail, start thinking about how aware you are of the environment and not just focusing on your dog, because you have to then have the third, you have to make it more three-dimensional, and you need to take in your surroundings. Because one thing that we all naturally do if we're not used to is you're on autopilot, and it's almost like your peripheral vision disappears and all you're looking at is the circle that has your dog in it, and all you're doing is watching that body language, because we know it's so important to watch our dogs. But the problem is you're then not taking any notice of your environment. So you could be like, yeah, my dog's definitely finished trailing, but then all of a sudden you go, right, what's your plan? And you go, I don't know, I don't know where I've come from. I don't even know which angle I've come from. Like, what's going on? So it's
very disorientating trailing as well. It's very disorientating.
Yeah.
Maybe people go, remember you've just been, I haven't got a clue what's on the dog.
Yeah, it is. It's very hard, but I'd really recommend, if you're not already, if you realise that when you do your next trails that you're solely focusing only on the dog and not the environment, I'd really recommend to start doing some shorter trails and not focusing on longer trails. Just do some super short 50 meters, try and start looking at your awareness of while they're trailing as well, so that you can start building yourself up to be in condition to also looking at your environment. Because if you aren't clocking your environment, the plan's just not going to happen, because you need to know, as the other part of the team, that when your dog loses scent, what are you going to do? Where was he last on it? Where were you happy up to? What went on at this junction? Where has he checked and not checked? Because now he's giving me negatives everywhere. It's all of these little things. And one huge thing that I see very often is, particularly with wind, is the dog follows out on wind because the scent goes there, it's stronger, they've gone out on air scent, it drops, there's nothing then there, and the handlers are just waiting for them to recover a trail. Well, there isn't a trail there to recover because there's no scent there, it's blown, the wind's dropped, and there's actually nothing there anymore. So they're not going to recover a trail because there isn't actually a trail in that area. So we need to be able to, in that situation, clock that he was air sent, take the negatives, check that he's checked that area, and then we need to know where to take him back to. Like, there's no point in expecting your dog to be able to recover a trail that doesn't exist, and dogs can get very frustrated from that. And it's a perfect example of why we need to have a plan, and not just rely solely on our dogs, because they do know what they're looking for, but if there's nothing there to recover, they're giving you the negative, and if you can't help them, it's kind of us that's letting the team down, because they're never going to find it again. So do you have anything else you want to add on why?
Add to that is, dogs know how to use their nose. They're born how to do it. They can hunt without us. They're perfectly capable of living without us at the end of that long line. Remember, you are a hindrance, not a help in mantrailing. If you let the dog off the lead, it would be fine. But it wouldn't be mantrailing anymore. It would just be an accident waiting to happen. And it's the plan is how you deal with the dog's behavior in the environment. And there's little steps within the big steps. I always think it's like it's a pyramid. Without the dog's behavior, we don't have our response, which is, and this bit build up of loads of little things, and it's understanding those little things. It's not just, yeah, my dog got to the end. It is, my dog did all of these things to get to the end, and then I did these things in order to encourage the behavior, discourage the behavior, or ask the question. So again, that lights of yes, no, maybe, in between. And that's kind of what you're looking at. It's really hard because mantrailing is very different. It's not very black and white. It's incredibly grey, mantrailing. I think it's mostly grey, to be honest. So the plan is always what's going to benefit your dog in that situation. And working really closely with an instructor or instructors is the best way to build that.
Yeah,
Hillary.
just reading Hillary.
Yeah, so just read it out. Or do you want me to read it out?
So let me just get Hillary's comment up. So I saw Hillary today. That's where speaking to the instructor and verbalizing what I'm seeing really helps me think about everything in the environment. It might not mean I do the right thing, but noticing is one step.
50 chases.
So yeah.
Well, we do meet up in dark bushes and weird places at night, so who knows? But yeah, Hillary is really good to say. I love it if my clients want to tell me what's going on, dog's doing this, dog's doing that, I can go, yeah, he definitely is, or I can go, yeah, I think you may have interpreted that a little bit weird, think about this. You're telling me it's negative. Is it a negative, or is a wind really strong? That dog doesn't know how to deal with it because it's never dealt with it before. Super Hillary.
A bit like commentary driving for the advanced test, a record of what you've seen. Yeah, it is. It's very much opening up the communication channel, really, of actually being a team rather than just a one-man job, because really, what's the point in you holding on to the end of the lead if you're not collecting the information your dog's telling you? Like, if your dog can go off and do it off lead and probably get there without you needing to be there, if you're gonna, do you know what I mean? Like, there's the whole reason why we have the line is for communication, so we can see what information the dog's collecting and telling us. So what's the point in us then not dealing with that information and collecting it and actually using it? And we're not being the other part of the team if we're not actually reading that and being able to help where it's necessary. And that's what having a plan is. It's about making sure that we set our dogs up for success and that we're not just leaving them to their own devices, but trusting them to the point where they are giving us those signs to then implement a plan. Super. Anything to add for you, Catherine?
No, I'm good. Let's get on to the next point.
Cool. So just have a quick look at my list of things to go through.
I think we've gone through the first bits by proxy, really.
Yeah. So just to clarify, because I think this is quite a nice way to describe it. So basically, each behavior that you're seeing from your dog is like opening up a new option for the plan. So you're almost opening a new door for each point that your dog gives, each behavior your dog gives. And it is just about like when were they on the trail and when are they not, and that's what it all comes down to. So just making sure you're clocking everything throughout the trail and not only waiting for when your dog actually starts to be lost. You need to also be clocking where were you really happy to, where was he getting really excited, when was the tail expression coming, when was he getting really pulling on the line, like all of these things that's in your dog's behavior within context, you need to be clocking, because even if they don't turn out to be relevant, you've clocked them and you can use that information, or you don't, but you've still got that in your mental memory.
Yeah, so all the time I always think it's, so my interpretation is we've got different kind of brains how we work. Is a flow chart. Dogs trailing, we're in the yes column, we're in the yes column, right? Dogs offer me a different behavior, it's giving me negatives. Okay, what does this mean? If the dog continues doing negatives in that area, okay, disregard left hand side. Disregard left hand side, what's my next option? Is it right? Is it straight? Have I actually gone the wrong direction? And all the time it's yes no's, and those yes no's have loads of options on them that you can go through and go, does this mean this? Yes, no. Does this mean that? Yes, no. And that's as close as you can get to making it black and white. But the problem is those little things, is there might be 15 things that you're going yes no on, because that's what your dog's doing. Dog's going yes no scent. It's going, there's scent here, there's not a scent here, and then when they use air scent, or they use obviously disturb scent in other ways, it's a grey area of scent has been here, scent is here, but it's not how I expect it to be. It's in a different context. And when you look at these plans, and we can't be so specific about things because every dog and every handler team and their environment's different. We can't say, oh yeah, when your dog loses a trail, you must cast it. That works with a spaniel. Spaniels will auto cast. It doesn't necessarily work with a guardian breed. I call it the pointy-eared problem, where they go, I've lost a trail. Shit, where is it? And I switch him. Whereas a spaniel goes, goodness me, I've lost the trail. I must go as fast as possible and find the scent and end up wrapping everybody in a line. It's knowing your dog, and it's knowing those little nuances. And when we talk about foundations, and we hammer at you foundations till you're blue in the face and you get fed up with us, it's not about making it easy for the dog. That's not what we're aiming for. The word easy is not involved at that point. What we're doing is going, can you actually understand that dog? Do you know what dog's telling you? Because when I get to the point where I give you an hour age trail that's 300 meters long and you can't read that dog, that's when it's going to go tits up. And you go, I can't do this, I can't do this. And you go, you can do this. This is a bit harder than you've been expecting. And it's the first time your dog will realize that you don't know what's going on. And they feel that too. One of the important things for me for plans is not only are we going yes and no and which doors and what options are here, you've got to feel like you've got a plan. A lot of people come for their assessment, a couple of sessions for their assessment or on their assessment, having never trailed without actual backup. And when the dog starts going wrong and they look at the instructor and nobody's going to give any help, the dog goes, what's changed here? You don't know what's going on. Maybe I don't know what's going on. And the dog either gets really erratic and works really hard to try and take up the slack you are, or the dog goes, well, no idea, doesn't matter. There's food in the car, forget about it. Because there's the potential for the reward has dropped. They've gone, you don't know, you're not excited. So I don't know if I'm skipping ahead here, Emma, so do interrupt me, but part of the plan is feeling like you have control and feeling confident, even if you haven't got a flying clue what's going on. The dog is telling you where the scent is, and you can interpret that. And if it goes wrong at the end, it goes wrong at the end. There's no wrong trails, there's only learning exercises. But if it goes, wrong in your head, where, oh, we didn't find the mist in time, or we did find the mist but it wasn't how I expected it, or I felt like it was a bad trail. No, it's a learning experience. Your plan needs to be changed to deal with that environment, or you need to have a few more. You only usually do A to D because that's the options you have. You need to add E, F, G in now. There needs to be more options to your plan, but it's that feeling of, this is not, I was not ready for this, because you haven't got that coach anymore. You haven't got that, your internal monologue, or your monologue has had to go internal because your instructor isn't telling you what's going on anymore. There isn't somebody whipping behind you.
It's definitely something to be conscious of if you are coming, particularly anyone that's taking levels, but also even if you're not taking levels and you're just working to the point where you're starting to want to do them a bit more flying solo with your instructor rather than your instructor confirming things, because it's amazing as soon as you take that security blanket away of your instructor going, nice job, good decision, nice.
You don't get the Mantrailing endorphin release because nobody told you you're good. Even though you got to the end, you're like, yeah, I found them, but nobody's praised you. You're going,
and
was it good?
Yeah, and it's really amazing how that actually makes a difference to your confidence, because if at each decision point you are actually used to your instructor going, did you see that? That was a really good decision. And then you go, yeah, and you carry on. And then you get to the next one and your instructor goes, nice. And then you go, yeah, I'm still right. And before you know it, you've been getting these little like boosts of confidence that you and your dog are doing right. And then all of a sudden you go to do your level 1 and you've never experienced not having that before, and you go, oh my God, I'm not sure, I'm doubting everything. I don't even know, like, because it's a mind game, and actually you need to condition yourself to being able to deal with that mind game and not just suddenly have a freak out, because that's also part of having a plan. Because if you go into a situation where you've never been used to not having that help, and you don't know how to implement a plan on your own, it's going to really come back on you and it's going to drop your confidence. So it's better to just start getting used to that, even if it's just the ends that are unknown to you, whether it's a single or a double blind, even if it's just the starts that are unknown to you, at least you're really having to rely on that. I'm just going to read Jackie's comment quickly. So Jackie said, I've made a lot of mistakes by not paying attention to the environment, lesson learned. Yeah, it's one of the biggest things really, I think, is actually you've noticed a behaviour change, but you have no idea where it happened. I worry that I will let my dog down. That's where I lack the confidence to say I'm certain on a decision the dog has made. It's not lack of faith in my dog, it's a lack of faith in me reading my dog. Yeah, it is, and it is a mind game. It's a massive mind game, and it's quite normal to doubt yourself, but you need to practice doing these things in a safe environment with an instructor that can help if you need it, so that it's not ruining your dog's confidence, but you can also get confident at trying to read, and you can also have that feedback on the trailer at the end, depending on how you like to get feedback, to be able to actually talk through, yeah, you were really right in saying that, that's exactly what I would have done, or that's exactly where the dog's gone, or oh, it could have been this as well. Did you think about how the wind was moving? Did you think about when he went and checked that junction, or he didn't actually check that one out? Did you clock that? And that's how you're going to get your confidence, with being able to feel confident in yourself, because you're only going to feel confident yourself if you let yourself be exposed to that. It's kind of like that thing that we always say, if you wrap yourself in bubble wrap, you're never going to come in harm's way. And it's exactly the same with Mantrailing. You need to expose yourself to some fear, I guess it is, and
fear and failure is normal.
Yeah.
It's really not life is not one golden circle. It's full of twists and turns, and it's the same with Mantrailing. I know we're not talking about the serious enough as life, but if things are going right all the time, you're being lied to, or you're not being challenged enough, and as soon as that safety net's taken away, you're going to really struggle. And not because I want people to struggle. I want everyone to enjoy Mantrailing. I just have fun every day of the week. But it's about learning. Stress is normal for learning. And blind ending is a brilliant way to have an instructor put a misbit out and say, right, I need you to be hidden somewhere in this 50-meter circle. We don't know. You'll be surprised how many people get to the end of that trail and go, right, it's double blind from here. And their behavior completely changes. Suddenly they don't know, the world's upside down. They don't know what they're doing, because the dog's carried on trailing as normal. It doesn't know, the dog doesn't know if a trail's single blind, double blind. It actually doesn't care if it's single or double blind, or if it's blue line. They don't care about labels. They care about the person at the end with their reward. The dog doesn't know. So if your behavior doesn't change and you just go, yeah, okay, I don't know what they are, but I'm going to watch the dog, I'm going to work, and I'm going to see what's going on. Yep, got a nice head flicks there. You feedback to the instructor. The instructor goes, that was a nice head flick. Yeah, they don't know, but they're interpreting the behaviour with you.
Yeah,
it's a really good thing to start doing. I think Jane Dalton just put in the mock assessments. Staying silent is a really good one. Yeah, doing some mock assessments is a good practice, definitely, with your instructors. Just saying to them, just shut up for 20 minutes and let me trail, and see, and just, can you just confirm if I'm right or wrong as I go.
I think as well, like I often also, some might think I'm mean for doing this, but it works very well as an instructor, and I'm sure my clients would vouch for it as well, is actually when they're at the right stage where I feel they're ready to do double blind endings, I will literally, even when they're right, I'll be like, what are you thinking? What, are you happy? Just to throw it in to make sure that they're like, just because I ask that question, that doesn't mean it's wrong. I do it even when I know that they're right as well, and that I'm thinking the same. Because actually it's a really good way of really checking yourself, and when, what is that plan? Are you happy with that plan? Are you happy with the behavior that's happening? And get you used to that environment as well. But mock assessments are a very good way of setting yourself up to see if you're ready. And they don't need to be aged, they don't need to be long. It's literally basing on, have you read the right behavior right from the start? If you've got no start, there's no trail. So have you even read that right? Have you managed to position yourself correctly so you're not influencing the direction of travel at the start? Have you set them onto the article in a neutral position so that you're not blocking exit points? There's so much to consider that just doing a 50-meter single blind is going to do wonders for your planning than it is even doing these all complex stuff that you do. Because if you're not feeling confident with that, you're only going to get confident by doing these type of things. So
yeah, I've got a few more comments coming, which is cool, guys. Thank you. We've got Tammy said video helping, video everything. I video everything. I send the videos to handlers and I go, here's a commentary, look back. And it's so important to have a little refresher a day later and go, right, hold on a minute, something on that trail was a bit squiffy. Where did I not understand what was going on? Where did the trail go where I didn't know what was going on, or wrong? Wrong's always a wrong word in my head, but it's the best way to describe it. Where do things go wrong? And to look back at the video and go, oh yeah, we're going to analyze Emma's video in a bit, and to have the opportunity to analyze that video and go, oh, that's what he was doing, makes a huge difference, because I guarantee you will not remember. Another thing that goes with it is these logbooks are not just for shits and giggles. The reason we have logbooks, we don't care what organization you use, whether you're operation otherwise, the reason we write stuff down is because you have not got a perfect memory. And it's really worth going, today's trails were absolutely awful but here's what I've learned because of it. The wind was doing this, the rain was doing that. We had 6 dogs run at my dog and it completely disorientated them. And I didn't know how to deal with that plan. I didn't know how to deal with a loose dog. Or we were trailing not so long ago. I was training with actually another instructor and her partner, and a deer literally a foot away from the dog popped out of a bush. Now luckily the dog went whatever, actually gave a negative on the deer and carried on trailing. Had it been any other dog I knew, we would have skied behind that dog. What's the plan for that? I was like, right, we need to plan for wildlife on our trails now. How are we going to deal with that? So we're going to try and set some trails up where there are more critters, or there are more squirrels and rabbits and maybe deer, so we can practice that. Because what happens if your dog switches into prey mode, like off hunting people or hunting animals? How would you deal with that? It was plans, the things we're doing. I wish I actually hadn't videoed that trail. I had no memory. I wish I videoed that one. But yeah, videoing is a brilliant way for you to look back and be able to, if you don't want to physically write it down, have a record of these trails and know where things have gone wrong. But record it visually, written down, whatever, interpretive dance, it doesn't matter. Somewhere you can go, yeah, we've been through this, we've done this before, let me go find my notes for that, and this is what we did to rectify this, or this, here I am now, I understand that behavior, and here's my plan. It's really good. Would you agree with that, Emma?
Yeah, definitely. Videoing, I mean, I try and view video 90%. Well, I would do 100, but sometimes I can't do everything. I don't have enough arms like an octopus. But I try and video all of mine in blues trails, and normally I always clock something that I didn't clock in person. Because the subtleties, sometimes you might have even turned around to just clock, where am I? I'm near that building, I need to remember that you did a head pop there, and I've missed a head flick while I was doing that. That might have been another negative, or it might have been an interest point or whatever. So you'll see a lot more things. You might see how you positioned yourself. You're on a short, narrow path and you didn't actually make yourself neutral, so they had the option to come back past, so therefore you were pushing them down an alleyway without realising. You can pick up on all these things from videos. And to be honest, as an instructor, I actually and an assessor as well. In fact, I actually did it with one of my assessment clients the other day. Was we videoed the assessment, and then I actually ended up, as you do, at like 10:30 at night before I went to bed, watched through it and did video commentary over the top, because I was actually, even from the feedback I've given at the assessment, I found more feedback that I wanted to give again from watching the video. So even as an assessor, we also identify things when it's within a bigger context and it's not actually happening. There's more little subtleties that you can look out for, so it's really interesting to do that as well. I think we've got another one from Jolene here, haven't we? It's always the same for the dog. It's always blind once it. Exactly. Yeah, exactly that, Jolene. You've got to remember that the dog doesn't know any different. Like, it should be coming out thinking it's going to have a ball of a time every single time it comes out. It shouldn't know that it's doing a double blind, because it's not. Once the unsent article starts, they don't know whether you know, or whether the mister knows, or whether the instructor knows. They just get out and go, nice one, cool, so you put me on the article, I need to look for that send, off we go. Trail
Where's my cat food?
They have, yeah, they have no perception other than the nerves and jitters that you give them that anything is different. To them, it's literally all in here with the handler. So it's something to get really used to as well. Jackie, you might like a bit of a hybrid when working single binds to build up confidence. I do a lot of trails where the handler doesn't know, but where they can check what they're thinking / seeing. I do this a lot when working with fellow instructors. I'll tell them what I'm thinking in the moment, and sometimes ask for verification that my thinking is right. It means you don't have to take a massive leap in the dark, but we'll build people's confidence to take that leap. Yeah, that's a really good point, Jane. And it's something that I find helpful actually as well when I'm working on something in particular. So I actually did this, I think it was with you actually, Jane, if this is Jane Dalton, I think it is, where so Blue is magnetized to water, like it's his favorite thing in the world, and actually it's probably the venue you'll actually see why it was like my enemy, this trail that I'm going to show you, because there was a stream running through it, and I actually worked on a very similar thing with Jane with that, because I wanted to get confident in what he looked like around water. So I did it as known trails to begin with at different sessions near water, so that I could see what that looked like. When he was being magnetized, what did he need to do? Do I have to let him go and explore and then he'll come away and trail and I just have to clock and have a plan to take him back? Or will he ignore it? Is he drawn to it more? I was looking at all these different things. And then when I felt happy on knowns, I then moved it to full single blinds so that I could then run that commentary back to Jane and Jane could confirm it to me. So basically I was saying, okay, so I'm aware there's water here. He's actually gone down for a drink. He's had a bit of a plodge, but now he's also telling me we're coming back this way. He's picked up the trail again and we're heading this way. Am I right? And she'd go, yeah or no. I think it was right. 90% of the time, I'd like to think. But basically, it was just giving me that confidence that I was starting to make the right decision in those scenarios. And I was getting the confidence of her then confirming that the decision I'd made was right in that situation. So that's a really good point.
Few more comments.
Tina, I tend to learn more by analysing and reviewing my failures than my successes, and it's usually a day or two later when I'm doing something random and my mistake will slap me in the face. Yeah, definitely. I think the thing is, A to B trails, so when we say A to B, it's literally like we get there, nothing's happened on the trail, we're really confident all the way in, they're straight there, they smashed it, we were really confident all the way. Absolutely amazing, but they've took us there. We didn't have to troubleshoot. We were really confident all the way. There's not as much learning there other than the fact that, great, they seem to be doing well. There's not any learning points from there. And it's totally normal to look back at ones where you feel like haven't gone so well and stew on them for a few days. I know I do. Like if something hasn't gone quite to plan, I'll stew on them. And normally, particularly if I video them, I'll look back at them after I've reflected on a while and watched the videos back and I'll be like, God, that was so obvious. And then you're like kicking yourself, being like, I literally pushed him down there, or like, look at my body language. I'm literally not even giving him the option to come back down this tiny little alleyway that's big enough for one dog. Like it's so obvious sometimes, and it's not until you actually reflect. We're just working our way through the comments, guys. I would always do a double blind finish and trust your dog to work the scent cone out itself without being guided in. We often guide our dogs by mistake. I think that depends. This is just my personal view. I think double blind finishes are very, very good. But I think you need to know what the scent pool and the scent picture looks like before you do them blind. Because from my personal experience, the scent pool can really kill a trail if your dog doesn't know how to work them. So actually being able to learn what that looks like from knowing where the person is very valuable also. But I do also see the value of doing double blind finishes. But yeah, definitely, I don't know what your take on that is, Catherine. I think there's definitely pros and cons to both. And I think depending on where you are in your journey as well makes a big difference on how you
Yeah, it's everything is individual. Any sort of dog training, any sort of man training rather, is individual to you as a team, your dog, and the environment you're training in. If you do loads of rural, if you hit urban, do not think you're at the same level. And your plan has to change because the environment changes. We did some trails, a couple of my clients on now the other day, where we did some road crossings on a busy road, and we actually crossed on the island. And on the island, we did it different ways. And every dog went, "I want to cross the road. I want to cross the road. I can't cross the road. What's this madness?" Then they had to deal with. We had to wait at the road crossings.
I mean, Lily, he knows I can go
I'll
there.
just put them on mute 1 second. Oh. Yeah.
And we had to work with that environment. Now, you got the best will in the world, that dog wouldn't be ready to be pushed on to anything harder because we haven't got the foundation. So double blinds and tweaking parts of the trail are, yes, everything's tweakable, everything's changeable. We've got to assess and plan when is the best time to add those things in as instructors, and also you as your students go, "I think I'm ready for that," and hold your hands up if you do it and things go wrong, and go, "My plan was not efficient enough for this or sufficient enough for this because of X, Y, and Z." But there's a place for everything within learning. It's the right time for that dog and client combination in the environment it's in. I massively environment makes so much difference. Like say a wind change can make or break a trail. Simple contamination. Somebody walks past the dog, you got a dog that's really dog motivated, could change the trail. Deer could cross trail, could change it. And you've got to deal with those things.
Yeah. Hilary had an excellent failure learning today. Learned loads to add into my next trail. I agree, Hilary. It was a really good learning experience today. And it was actually really interesting. I actually trailed Blue straight after on that trail. And it was really interesting seeing really similar behaviours in that, and we both learned a lot from so what I'm working on at the moment, what I've encountered is my personal learning at the moment is I'm working on double blinds, and I've seemed to have gotten a habit, which Jane will vouch for from when I've trained with her, not a habit because it doesn't happen every time, but I now have a plan, and it's normally the right plan once I confirm it, but I'm not executing it quite how I want to. In my head, I know what I want to do, but actually when I implement it, I'm not doing it how I intended, because my brain just isn't connecting it together at the moment. So for instance, 2 trails that I've done recently, it turned out we trailed beautifully, Blue trailed really well. And then the point where he gave a negative, my plan was, right, I was happy up to this point, I'm going to cast him around this junction to see if he picks it up, and then I'm going to cast him further in, and then I haven't cast him further in. So I've cast him just too close to where whatever it is he struggled with. I haven't gotten to the outside of that. And then, so that my plan's been there if I need to cast him further, but then I haven't actually implemented what I've meant to do. So that's something that I'm working on at the moment. So it's just all learning, but you're not going to know what you need to work on until you start doing these plans, if that makes sense. But I agree, Hilary, that was a really good learning trail. Tammy, oh Canada, the stories we'll have from sharing in Canada. I whispered right past a pile of fresh bear poo last week. The dogs didn't even notice it, and no one went bear hunting. It's always a good sign, Tammy.
Animals are more dangerous in the US and Europe, and over here we're like, oh, might be a large deer, might run away, you might get barked at by a dog. It's a bit more dangerous in Canada.
So great to think about adding further support for reviewing the videos. Yeah, definitely. I know Jane's recently just started, and I know Lisa's done a little bit, and a few other instructors had of doing a bit of video analysis, so actually doing a bit of trailing together as a group, and then actually watching back the videos, so as a group, to see if you can pick up different things from the videos and talking through what this could have meant, what could we have done differently, can you see body language here? That can be really helpful. Jackie, looks like I'll be getting my GoPro camera out so I can go back and analyze. Yeah, sounds like a really good thing to do. Jane, I remember you saying exactly that. Yeah. Yeah, it happened again today, Jane. I had the right plan, it turned out, but I just hadn't cast far enough in again, so I need to keep that really conscious at the forefront in future trails. But this is the thing, you have to do it and keep doing it to actually get the plan instilled, because if you're not practicing having plans and you're always relying on someone else to do it, you don't consciously have to think about these things. Super. Catherine, have you got anything else to add? We're at the end of the comments before we go on to the video.
I mean, I can waffle all night about Mantrailing, but it might not be that efficient. I think the title of like the talk we're doing, like plan to fail or fail to plan, you know, you're going to fail. Don't think it's a be all and end all. If you feel like you come away going, I don't know what I'm doing, why am I mantrailing, the world's going to end, which we've all been there. We've all been either instructors, there's head instructors, we've all been there and gone, what are we doing with our lives? We are asking our dogs to do something very complex. It's A to B in our mind, but it's never in their mind. There's so much going on, and we're trying to interpret it, and how much, and trying to interpret the dog's behavior and work out in an ever-changing environment. So don't panic if things don't go wrong.
So John has said, as you keep mentioning to plan, how much planning is spent actually laying out the trail in relation to air currents and scent aging? So it needs to be based on your overall training plan. So the plan that we're talking about here is actually your plan that you're implementing dynamically upon the trail and the behaviour that's being presented. You're talking more with regards to setting up training sessions to give the dog success and be able to learn these different things. Obviously, laying out the trail in relation to air currents and scent aging is going to be based upon the dog's experience and what they've already encountered in previous experience before, and what that dog is individually working on as well. So it's quite a tricky one to answer, because again, it's within context of an individual team and what they're currently working on. Does that make sense? Do you have any?
It's really difficult to write a plan and be like, X, Y, Z, we want to train this, because it's ever changing. We'd like to lay trails so the dogs are going to have great success, but I've laid a trail out at one point, absolutely no wind, come to run the trail and the wind is swirling like heck, and the dog just looked at me and went, I don't know what you want from me, I cannot find the trail in this. And the same with scent aging. We want to set up trails of success, and you as a student, you know, are gonna discuss with your instructor how you want that success and what you'd like to work on. But the environment is ever changing, and it's the one thing we cannot control is weather, or what people decide to do in that environment. So when we talk about our plan is based on the fact that we don't have control over everything else. So you can't plan for everything, but you can plan a response in regards to what you're presented to at that point, whether it's the trail's really aged, the dog's struggling because the scent pools are sitting in weird places, or the scent is aged because it's been a red hot day, so the trail's just in a really different way to normal. It just doesn't smell normal. You presented with a super aged trail, but the wind is behind you the whole time, so the dog's having to forcibly put his nose down. It's not a normal ground scenting dog. It likes to use air scent or what's available, and it's being forced to put its nose down. Age isn't a big factor at that point. It's the way the weather is going to make a difference, may or may not make a difference in the age of that trail. And what we're kind of discussing is, we can't give you a black and white plan, but we can give you the actually just think about putting one in gear, really.
Yeah, it's definitely a tricky one, but it really does depend on the experience of the team and how well they are at reading the dog and putting in a plan, because you want to set the dog and handler team up for success as an instructor, or if you're setting the trails up yourself. And if you, for instance, you do need to expose when you get to the point that they're working that well and you've seen the successful at a certain level, is you do then need to expose yourself to potentially setting up a mister that's going against the wind rather than towards, or opposite way round, or these different scenarios, so that you actually know what that looks like. What does the dog do in that situation? Is it coming into proximity quite far out because actually the wind's blowing towards its face, or is it actually really struggling because the wind's actually going out the other way and there isn't actually a really strong scent, and the trail's actually being blown outwards? It's all of these different things that you need to take into consideration, and the level that you're working at, when it comes to actually planning with regards to air current and scent aging. I find it best to have a lost track/trail drill. initial cast, then further cast, and then possible exits if the cast don't produce anything. Yeah, I mean, I think we actually discussed this almost on one of the other webinars that we've done before, haven't we, Catherine? But yeah,
we did the junctions one, didn't we, within the
guild?
Was
it the guild?
Yeah, it'd be the guild. Well, that wasn't a public one, no.
Yeah, so it's good to have it. Again, it comes down to what works for you and your dog. You're going to discover that in the natural way that your dog works and how often you need to get in. And also, for instance, like Catherine said, some dogs will naturally go into self-casting to recover a trail, whereas some dogs will need you to physically control cast them to check junctions and possibilities. But in general, this is how me and Blue work. I'd let Blue self-cast. If he didn't recover anything, I'd then go into control casting where I help him. If he was still giving negatives, I'd take him in further. If I was happy up to that point, obviously there'd be a different plan if I wasn't happy up to that point. Because obviously if they're not picking up anything from self or control casting, then we need to go further in because something's going on with the scent or there isn't anything here, so I need to check it to rule it out. So
to be honest, I think Hazel summed it up properly. It's about having options and knowing what those options are rather than freezing.
Yeah.
Every dog is different, and that your plan is your plan, and it's tweaked and it's changed and it's adaptive. If you've got a high drive Malinois that's really adamant on a trail and knows it does quick casts, it never goes more than like 5-6 meters, great. You've got a really concise, decisive dog who's goal. If you've got a mad spaniel like I have who goes, I've lost the trail, and casts. Now he never casts to a point where he's out of control, but he just goes bang, 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 no, trail, and you have to be ready because he's gonna go. And if you are not watching, you're gonna go flat on your face. I've yet to go down, but I know it's gonna happen one of these days. So he's really good at self-casting. I have trailed with a very low dive German Shepherd who goes, oh, Mantrailing, and I do have to self-cast him at junctions. I do have to go, Titan, do you want to go and check out where the person's gone? He'll go, suppose I'll find the idiot in the bush. And that's going to completely change if the weather changes. If it starts raining and the scent's sticking in all places, he might not want to cast because why would I check that way? The scent's definitely this way. And what we're talking about tonight, and the whole point in this kind of talk, is you need to find what works for you and your dog in the situation you are presented with, that environment at the time. And it's about having A to Z options, a capital A's and low A's as well, little A's as well. You've got so many options that you can use, and then that you find that those options become the most efficient options. So you go, oh yeah, my dog actually is a really good caster. So generally when I think I lost the trail, I'm going to cast him, and he does it naturally. I don't need to be involved, but I need to be hawk watching him, because the second he wants to go to that trail, I've got to go with him, because if I don't go with him, he's going to take it as a correction, or he's going to take it as I'm not sure, and then he's going to go, oh, I don't want to go that way anymore because you haven't backed me up quickly enough. That can be a response. It's not necessarily us making a big decision to do something, but we're planning to back the dog up. But everything's very, very individual, extremely individual, and it's one of the reasons why we're like, work really close with your instructor and learn your dog as much as possible. I find the handlers that trail 2 dogs absolutely have the hardest job at this, because they struggle to switch from dog to dog. I know I've gone through that. I know you've gone through that, especially and they've always got 2 very different dogs, always.
Yeah.
You don't go, oh, I'll get 2 Malinois that trail the same way. No, Emma's got a collie and a American bulldog cross Charlie thing. This is awesome. And they're just different personalities. I trail a high drive Springer, and then I can't be asked German Shepherd sometimes. I've just got a young Mallee and I'm going to trail him. He's going to trail completely different to my Springer. He's high drive, but he is not, he doesn't put his brain in gear at all, this dog. He's just like, oh, the world's my oyster. And I'm like, oh, you're a bad combination. Pointy ears and floppy ears are totally different. I call it a pointy eared problem when the dog goes, don't know, I'm going to look at that bush. A floppy eared dog goes, scent everywhere, it's everywhere. I need to follow every bit of it, because they're bred to do different things. Understanding your breed is a big thing as well. Plan and then understand the specifics within that, because not every dog is the same. I've got 6 German Shepherds and they're all flipping different. So the pointy ears and floppy ears are totally different. And then Helen's put my 2 Munsterlanders trail differently. Yeah, they will.
Yeah.
And the terriers completely different.
Which is why, I mean, as instructors, we have to be so adaptable, because literally every single dog that comes through a training session does not trail the same. We're not looking out for the same things. We're literally basing it on how that dog trails and the experience that we have previously and the knowledge that we have to be able to read that. Because there are certain behaviours we can look out for, but the way that dog displays those behaviours is very different even within breed. So it really is about getting to know your individual dog, and not just thinking, if you do trail multiple dogs, that one dog is going to trail the same as the other, and that one dog is wrong and one dog isn't, because it's just so different that you can't compare it. They're doing how they would hunt in the wild. That's what we're doing. We're just harnessing it into a human scent. So that's how they would hunt in the wild. So to say that they're wrong, it's a survival instinct. That's how that dog naturally hunts. So it's just, we're learning how they naturally do it. So we need to learn what that looks like to them, and it is going to vary within dogs and breeds. Super. Jane, is there a specific ear you read?
Part pointy, part floppy.
Is it a one down?
Yeah. Super. Let's get on to this video then and start analysing. Hopefully you guys will be able to watch it. Now, Zoom has a funny thing. If your internet's a bit slow, it won't always show the video very well. When we put this up for recording, it should show it really well. So even if you don't see the video tonight, when the recording goes up, you should be able to see the video. If not, we'll edit it, we'll put the video in, we'll do some magic. I'll find somebody to do some magic with it, because it won't be me. But we'll play it through. It's not a very long video, but we'll just play it. Do you want to play it through without commentary first, or are you going to put the commentary straight in?
No, I've took the commentary out so I can talk you through
your commentary.
It's just us babbling around, because you'll see when I'm talking to Jane. So this was a trail that I did with Jane Dalton at Canine Rockstars over in Cumbria. It was a single blind, but I did it with no. It was fully single blind. It was with no help. Although Jane at one point was like, "Oh, do you want to ask?" And I was like, "Don't answer. Let me think about it. I need to think about it before you tell me." And we decided not to say. But you'll see why it was quite tricky. By all means, this is not a perfect trail. This is me showing you a trail that is realistic. This is what happened. It's not fluffy around the edges. It's a learning experience. We found the mister, and you'll see why the plan was important. And I'll also talk you through what I think I could have done differently if there's anything that I picked up from the video, like we were talking about video analysis. So bear with me 1 second, and I'll see if I can screen share this with you. So we're going in for the scent article at the moment. Taking scent, and then he goes. So this first bit, he goes to have a wee on the agility equipment, and I have a freak out because I know agility people don't like that. So I actually correct him, which Blue's very sensitive to, and I don't mean to do it. So I have to clock that as my first part of the plan of actually have I stopped him wanting to go the direction he's gone, because I realised that it stopped him from working. So he then sets off again. So that was the first part of my plan. If he didn't carry on, I clocked that. I'd probably made that aversive. So he's trailing now. He's on the trail. Checks round to the left, and then he's just done an elimination circle to determine direction of travel again. He then goes off into an enclosed building, which is very normal, particularly for this venue it is as well. Jane will probably agree. Obviously, as we travel past, these type of places are going to create scent pools because the scent gets trapped. And on this particular day, someone had brought a toilet tent, which added an extra dimension of scent, which is right here where Blue gets excited because there's lots of human scent in there. So with me and Blue, I like to try and I train a bit more through self-discovery with Blue, because he's very excited here, and I wanted him to make the decision to actually leave this alone himself rather than me taking him out. But another option could have been take him back out onto the grass area. He comes to bring himself back out and then gets pulled in again. So I could at this stage have took him back out of this area and onto the grass just outside so that he's not trapped in the scent pool anymore. But I gave him the opportunity to work it out himself, which he did. He eliminated and then brought himself out. And then he picks up the trail again. You see the behaviour change. So he gets to this point, I'm quite happy. I give him line so that I'm not influencing either direction of travel. He checks both ways, eliminates that way, and then goes with this way. Give him line before so that he can commit before I follow, so I'm not influencing. He then checks off to this left area, gives me an elimination, gives me a negative, and makes his way back. A quick elimination to the left, and then he carries on back through here. So at this point, I'm happy that everything's fine. The last decision point would have been back at the junction, but I'm quite happy up until that point that everything was good. I could have potentially, this is a narrow path, so on hindsight, looking back for my own learning, I could be more neutral when he makes a decision to stop and think about it. He's done a bit of a shake off, but I'm actually stood in his way a little bit there, so I move off. So I could have done that earlier on as well. So you can see I'm quite neutral. I'm giving him the option of opening that junction back up for him to come back if he wants to. He then checks up the hill, which I was hoping to God that I didn't go up there because it looked very steep and scary. I went to follow him, but he gave a nice negative. So I didn't want to doubt him too much in case it was that way. If anyone's trained with Jane before, she doesn't hold back on crazy places to hide, so it wasn't totally out. So that was another point that I would have took in a plan, right? Okay, he showed quite a lot of interest, but I am happy he's given a negative there, but just in case he says further on, I'm going to go back to that point. Checks off to the left, there's a little stream that's coming through, but gives a negative of carrying on up that way. And then he stands at the gate, has a little drink, and then his interest stays with the area going into the gate. So I give him time, wait for that interest, and then I let him check through. So I go through the gate and I let him actually go and pick a direction of travel before I follow again, because he could have given a negative, and if I went too quickly, I would have potentially pushed him in. Slight interest to the left with a shake off. Could have been an elimination, could have just been interest. Went to the gate, came back out, checked forwards, and then went back to the gate. So I opened it up to let him check. You'll now realise why, because he's magnetised to water, why I was suddenly like, oh God, now here we go. So he goes over the bridge. No interest to go into the right or straight over, straight to the water. So this is where my plan starts to come into play. Okay, this is where it really started to get, is it water? Where was I happy to? And where am I going to bring him back to? In my little red flag went down at the bridge here, just before we came over it. I had to catch up with him here because he was going to get his line trapped. I gave him the opportunity. He checks off and then shoots off again. I give him plenty of line, so I'm not influencing him. He then pulls back over to the water and he has a drink, which I'm quite happy with. Scent sticks to water as well, so just because I know that he likes water, I can't doubt him too much, because it might just be that actually there is scent there, or he just wants a drink. And then he shoots off again and off he goes. And then he pulls back down to the water again. So you can start to see why I needed a plan here, because I started thinking, okay, he's showing trailing behaviour, but there's water nearby, which is one reason that I need to have a plan. But also he's not his usual straightforward self. You can see the trailing behaviours there. He's quite animated, but he keeps pulling off to the left. He's checking along the riverbank. I mean, at this point, I don't know if Jane's even put a stream crossing in or a river crossing, because it was literally like, just set up what you want to set up. So he goes off again, still keeping quite to the left-hand side. Bit of a shake off. And then he goes to check this way. So I give him his line. He checks it out. He's still showing trailing behaviour here. He's still quite animated, but in my head, I'm also now starting to think he's on scent, but I don't think it's a trail, and I'll explain why in a minute. So checked back out the other way and said no, a bit of a shake off again, so he's not 100% sure. So I then have a plan of actually he's lost it here, he said no, so I'm going to take it back to where he was last quite confident, which was near the river, and see if he picks anything up. And he then shoots back off up the hill. I think it might skip in a second because I had to do it in 2 halves and stick them back together because it's quite long. So he's kind of checking out the riverside again. Again, a lot of interest to the left. And I'd say to Jane here, he's shown a lot of interest to the left. So I've clocked that. I know that's happening. And my little marker's still down at the bridge. I let him carry on because he's picked something up again. So this is just the next bit because I had to put the videos together. He's carried on, he's checking to the left. He's searching for it now, so he's done a big casting circle and then he pulls off again. He hasn't given me a full negative yet. He's showing me that there's scent there, but I'm already thinking it's not a full trail. There's something going on here, and I know he's clocking to the left. If I'd have left the video on, you'd realise it was blown an absolute hoolie, like it always is in the Lake District when I visit Jane. And you can see here I'm just casting him, seeing if he'll pick anything up. Now we're up here. So he's having a cast around. So this is self-casting, so I'm letting him check all the possibilities. He says no to any further from there. He says no to anything there. And then he checks a bit further up and he says no. So at this stage, I'm kind of like, I'm pretty happy at the minute that he's not on a trail. He's followed some sort of scent, but I'm talking here, you can see I'm stood around, I'm making Blue have a rest while I talk to Jane about what my plan is. She actually asks him if he wants to know, and I said no. Let me see if I can think. So going back to what Jane said about, I'll confirm my plan. So what I'm thinking is here, I think the wind's coming directly towards the way that we've gone. He's checked the ways that I'm pointing in the video, and I think it might be wind blowing across, but in that he's picking up scent here still, but that he actually isn't on a trail. So I decide, rather than taking right back down the hill to the bridge where my marker is, I cast him on any options that I'm not 100% sure that he's checked. So he's searching, he's giving me a negative that way. He's searching again, checking, negative that way, head comes up, turn round, and then he checks on the path and gives me another negative, head comes up. So I'm quite happy now that he's eliminated everywhere. I'm quite happy that the trail doesn't go anywhere and that it was blown scent, which was a part of the plan that I'd already clocked. You can see the grass moving actually here. It was quite strong. So I then walk him back down to the point where I am. He's still kind of popping as well, back to the right now because we're coming the other way. So I just walk him back down now. So I'm going back to that red marker, what I told you about, that was the bridge. That was where I wasn't 100% sure. He then pulled off to the side again, so I just let him check it in a second, because he shows some behaviour again, so I let him go and check, but then he gives a negative again, so I bring him back to my plan of walking him back to the bridge. So again, gives a nice negative. I've let him check where he was interested and he's given me negatives again. So I'm quite happy to carry on with the original plan of taking him back to the bridge. So I take him down. You'll see, because he's a bit lost now, which also is also part of my plan, what happens in a second is he actually jumps up at a decoy who he knows isn't the person because they've been present, but because he's a bit confused, he's not picking up a trail, he chances it and jumps up at someone that was watching. So I also know that is another sign to me that actually he's not trailing when I'm in a training situation. He's not on scent, sorry. So he kind of goes in and takes a bit of a chance. And then I just wait him out and see if, again, self-discovery, I let him make a decision to move on and realise it's not them. Quick check to the left and really quickly decided not, and it's back across the bridge. So he comes back again. So now we're at the point where I left my marker. Again, he chances again. He's a bit like, oh God, like I've been lost for a while, and then picks it up again, back where the red marker was. So he's searching for it. It actually turns out at the end as well that this was actually a scent pool. So we had a live and dead scent pool. So there was someone that had hidden there previously and then gone. And then there was also the live scent pool of the person that we were actually looking for. So he's working different scent pools here. You can see his behaviour's changed as well. He's quite erratic. He's back in scent, but he's trying to work it out. And then Jane shoots back over. She's just explaining to the other guys what's going on here. So you can see his behaviour is very much different to the other side. So although he was still in scent, it was the blown versus trail, which is why I'd clocked the red flag. And I didn't tell him he couldn't go there because I didn't know, but I waited for that negative. So you can see he's very different in his behaviour again, similar to what he was at the start. Again, there's water. Could be that he wanted to go down to the water. It could be that there was scent there. Who knows? Head comes up again and then he flats off to the left. You'll see him again in a minute. This is Jane trying to keep up with us now. Blue gets very speedy as he starts to get quite confident in his trail again. So you can see he's got a lot more erratic. You can see he's really working hard. He's got his nose to the ground. He's coming really head up when he comes out of scent again. He gets quite giddy when he's trying to recover it again. I'm giving him plenty of lines so that he can make a decision before I follow him as well, so I'm not pushing him. So negative upwards, and then he does another one of his big elimination circles, determines direction of travel out of it again. Head's a lot more up now, but he's also getting quite excited. So to me, this is proximity or scent pool behaviour now as well. He's a lot more head up. He's not got his nose down barely at all anymore, which is Blue's typical behaviour for when he's nearby. And then Jane's going, God, Blue. So he comes down again. He's trying to get up high to find scent. Comes back down to, oh, it's just flickering a bit, but you'll still be able to get the gist because we're nearly there now. So again, recovering it again. And you'll not see, but she's literally at the top of the hill now, but you can see how excited Bully's getting. Sorry, it's flashing, guys. I'm not sure why it's doing that. There we go. And she was just at the top of there, but the video stops just before you find her. Super. Can you all see me again? Has that stopped sharing now?
Yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Did that make any sense at all? I'm hoping that I managed to commentate it pretty all right. I'm hoping it made sense. Obviously,
the screen was a bit funny because you couldn't see all of the edge of the screen.
Oh, really? Ah, that's annoying.
But what I'll do is I'll get you to over it. I've got echoes here somewhere. Who's got sound off weirdly?
Hazel. Let me just turn that off. I've muted you. So could you only see a tiny little bit?
You could see
part of it. Sorry, guys. I will, if you didn't manage to catch any of that, I will put the video up with my commentation over it separately, because it's an interesting one to watch of why the plan was important. I'm hoping you managed to see some of it though, but sorry if you didn't.
I'm hoping I'm not echoing.
I don't think you're echoing anymore. Was it windy? 1 minute, I'm just going up the comments. Maybe it needs to load more. I think it's probably tricky based on internet connection / technical issues at our end. A
lot of times it's jumpy. It's because you're in tech.
Yeah. Yeah, don't worry, guys, if you didn't manage to see it, because Blue was actually in the shot a lot. So if you didn't actually see him, much of him, I'm gonna get the video and do it. This is the problem with technology, I guess, but you will manage to get access to it. We'll sort it out. So I'm just going to try and find where we were in the comments so I can answer anything as we went, because I could only see the video while I was talking at the time. So Jolene, we were on No Panic, we're all learning. Elephant Trails, we've done that one. We've done, can you just explain what double blind is, didn't you, Catherine? Sorry, I wasn't paying attention while I was trying to sort it out. So Jane, operationally, although we're only sport training, sometimes more than one dog is used to confirm a trail. Does each dog, i.e. does each dog confirm direction of travel of natural MISPR? So with regards to Natalie's question, this elephant trailing can be legitimate exercise to be used occasionally, sometimes repeat the trail with a different dog, but I completely agree that shouldn't be overused. Yeah.
I don't think it's worth us commenting if it's operational based. I don't think it's worth us getting into it. Not something we know about if you're discussing operational type stuff.
Yeah. The reason, yeah, the reason really why I would say about the what you call elephant trailing is the bulk scent, like what Catherine said. It's okay to do every now and again, but it's not a true trail, because there's bulk scent that is potentially going to make a dog want to follow that more as well. So it's not necessarily a true trail. Andy, he gives you very strong negatives. Yeah, he's pretty cool to watch. Can't see the dog, it's off screen. Sorry, I will sort that out so you can read it. How old was the trail in the temperature? Jane, I think it was an hour old, if I remember right. Temperature was probably, it was in winter, and the wind was very, very strong, and we were pretty wrapped up. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head what the temperature was, but it wasn't warm. I know that much. Was it all windy? Yeah, so the wind, so just in case you hadn't gathered from the video, because obviously I have the environmental context, I've been to the venue before, it might not have been obvious on the video. Basically, we came through the valley at the start quite confidently. There was then the decision at the bridge of crossing or staying on this side of the valley. It's in a valley with two hills either side. And the wind was blowing directly across, and he was picking up blown scent up this side, which is why his trailing behaviour was slightly different to trailing, but he was still picking up scent. And it turned out the person that was hidden was actually on the parallel hill at the other side of the valley with the wind blowing straight across, which is why he gave the negatives once he got to the top of the hill, because it was parallel. So I hope that explains. It was very windy as well. You couldn't, one of the reasons why I turned the sound off on the video was actually because it was just like making all this weird noise. I hope you enjoyed that demonstration. But yeah, that's one of the reasons why I turned it off, because it was very windy. Scent pools around water and being drawn to it. Yeah, which is why I have to be quite thorough with a plan when it comes to Blue. Because he is obsessed with water, and we've been working around water, because mainly for me, I now know that Blue will work past it if he needs to, but I needed to know what that looks like just from not having that many trails with him around water due to my venue, so I purposely been working on that. But yeah, it's interesting, because what I'm working on also with water is getting out my head that it's not just Blue being magnetized to it because he loves water. There is actually the possibility of scent there, so not making a presumption and taking him away because I'm basing that on what I think is happening and not what's actually happening. So being able to trust him around it. Cool day, coats and hats, but not hugely cold, very windy. There we go, Jane's done that. As I recall, not massively aged, 10 minutes or so. I think it was an hour because Lynn had stayed out for somebody else first, Jane, if I remember right. I'm sure it was aged, if I remember right, because we'd done, there'd also been the scent pool from the person before as well, and then Lynn had moved on and was at the top, so it was, if that makes any sense, but I'm pretty sure it's about an hour. Scent pools around water is drawn to it. Yeah, love the video and discussion. I'd really love the opportunity to still make more video analysis with you guys who are experienced. Cool, I'll suggest that to the head instructor team, and Lisa, Tammy, have to run, thank you. Cool. So sorry, got to go, but thank you for this talk. Lots to think about and put into place. Look forward to getting recording. Yeah, definitely record. Hard trail for Blue. Yeah, it was a challenge, but I was quite pleased with how it went. I feel like the blown scent, if I'd have pulled him off beforehand, I don't think I would have been 100% happy with it. Definitely wasn't up there. So I was quite happy with my plan, and it worked. Like I say, other people might have interpreted different. Some people might have thought, oh, I'd have took him back further, he gave a negative clear there, or but just from me working him as not knowing, I was quite happy with when I actually brought him back from the blown scent, because I wasn't sure until I got to that point. I thought that was happening, but he hadn't given a full negative and he still kept pulling off quite strongly up to the top. So I wouldn't have been happy. And if he then hadn't picked it up at the bridge, I would have gone all the way back up there to check anyway, if I hadn't of. Blue was out of the screen a lot, hard to see his reactions. Hopefully we can get that video up. Could see the grass quite a bit. Well, I hope you enjoyed the grass. Blue wasn't in shot all the time, so posting the video afterwards would be brilliant. I'll definitely try and do that. Bye, Tina. Enjoy. Elephant trails have to go now, but thank you very much. That's very interesting. Catherine, gone quiet. Colt. Sorry, guys, I'm just quickly catching up to make sure I don't miss anything, because obviously I wasn't reading them while I was talking. Sorry, but I have to go. It was very interesting. Bye-bye. Bye. Paul Bunker, really impressed with the handling and commentary. Read the dog and implemented your understanding of the dog's behaviour. Great job. Thanks, Paul. Awesome. That's always good to know. Andy, lots of wind, blown odour in open fields and blustery conditions. Not much objects to hold blown odour in areas. Very hard trail for Blue. It looked like with blown odour he was following when he crossed the bridge. He stopped on that hill where the odour would have held. Give you the negative, then second negative. And if an age trail, he worked the cone well, then he got there. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. It was a really interesting one, because I watched this back quite a few times afterwards, and I was like, could I have took a negative sooner with the blown scent? But I mean, guys that have done this before, you'll know it's so hard to base a decision if you're not 100% that it was a negative. And because he kept pulling back out, which was obviously where the blown scent was blowing still, there was still scent there. I feel like I would have potentially then doubted if it went further. So I was quite happy once we got to the top, where obviously the scent would have stopped because it was parallel. It was the same height where it had blown the top. So it made sense that he actually gave really clear negatives to all directions at the top then. So I could fully eliminate that area out, and it confirmed that I was right in thinking it was blown scent. He stopped on that hill where the odor would have given you negative. Yeah. Jerry covered the scent behaviour in that kind of environment in a recent webinar. Awesome. Great learning video and how the wind takes then. Challenging trail. Thanks very much. Must go now. Thanks, Helen. I'll see you later. How long was the trail? Do you know, I can't 100% remember. Jane, out of your experience of setting up the trail, can you remember roughly, just off your experience of setting up trails there, how long that trail would have been? I mean, obviously Blue will have done a lot more, just purely because he went up the whole other side as well. If you can remember, please let me know.
Approximately.
Say that again.
Approximately 350.
Cool. So about 350. Was interesting to see how the scent moved across the valley. Yeah, this was a really, really interesting learning trail for me, and I'm really grateful for it, because it actually gave me loads of confidence in I mean, it's not going to get much harder than that, having a mister sat on an opposite adjacent massive hill of a valley, and you're up the opposite side of a river, up the opposite massive hill. So I was quite chuffed that we actually made the find in the end. So I felt like that was really good learning for both of us. Definitely need to record Mayor's trails more. Yeah, I do think there's so much value in recording trails, massively. Because you just see so much more. Like I say, like watching this video back after I'd done it, although we found I still felt like I learned so much from watching it, of things that I could do. Really interesting to watch. I think the video for feedback is great for learning, and to see where the handler or dog missed clues, even if it was 10 p.m. I'll have to go and get the GoPro. Yeah, so it was Wendy that I was sending commentated videos at 10:30 last night too. This was great, thank you. See you next week in Scotland, Catherine. Oh, Laura, I'm in Scotland as well on the weekend, so I'll see you there as well. 350, it's 350 meters, Megan. And very windy. Yeah, it was very windy, and it blows a hoolie through there as well, because it's literally like a valley with open bottom and then like really high hills either side. Well done, Blue and Handler, and thanks for this. You're welcome. You'll meet Munchie, yay. And thanks, can't wait. Thank you for this nice webinar. Kind regards from Belgium. Oh, hi Belgium. That's cool that you've joined us. Awesome. So I think I've made the way through the comments. Has anyone else got any questions? And two, Catherine, have you got anything to add? Oh, we just had another one. Good to see you going on further until you were absolutely 100%. As sometimes, although we are quite certain the trail may have been back, that the dog's body language can give us reason to continue. Definitely having the map in our mind helps so much. Sometimes with fast spaniel, it can be tricky. Yeah, it really can be. With Blue, because when he gives the negatives, he's very clear, which is why I felt like there was still scent there. It wasn't his trailing behavior, but it wasn't a negative for him either. And that's what we were talking about when you have the plan, what does your dog actually do in these situations? Because Blue wouldn't still be carrying on with that enthusiasm, even if it did look differently, if there wasn't scent there, which is why I actually thought it was blown scent when I took everything into context with the environment. So I hope that makes sense. Hi, Liz from Spain. Super. Have you got anything to add, Catherine? No more comments from me unless anyone has any comments. Catherine's given up. She's echoing too much. Always video your trails, watch back. We always miss clues our canines give us. The nose always knows. Yeah. It is so true, honestly. Like, video analysis afterwards can make a massive difference. Even if you're not 100% sure what to look out for, normally if it sticks out like a sore thumb, you'll know that, even if you're not 100% confident with what you're looking for. So like I said on that video where we were on the narrow path, like, to me, if my back's facing the camera and it's a narrow path, I should have been opening that potential option back up to come back through. So even from watching that, to me that stuck out like a sore thumb, because really he should have had the potential to come back through if he'd wanted to, and I'd blocked it. And luckily it didn't make a difference, and I did end up doing that when he checked again. But it's things like that you can really look out for. Thank you, it's been helpful. What video equipment is best? It's very personal preference. The main thing that I would probably say is try and do videos that maybe are on like your GoPro or a phone mount, where you're looking at your dog, but also try and get someone that's with you, whether it's a spectator or your instructor, to actually video so you can see yourself, because you'll often only see the behavior of the dog in the ones that you do, and you'll not recognize any of your own behavior that's influencing the trail from when you're just looking at your dog on a camera. So I'd try as much as possible to get someone else to video it for you. Super interesting, thank you. Love hearing someone else's commentary, and really like the red flag and traffic light systems. Good, I'm glad that you can hopefully implement them. Catherine says phone in chest or head holder, or get someone to flank just to record you. You don't need to go GoPro all the time. I always ask others to video, yeah. Is there a book or anything explaining the dog's body language? Catherine, you might be able to help with this one, because I know you've got quite a stash of dog books, haven't you? But what's really tricky is you can look for a specific set of behaviors, tail carriage, half moon, head flicks, all of these different types of things, but it's only going to be relevant if you know what that specific body language looks like to your dog in what context and in different contexts. I mean, it's great to do as much research as you can, but at the end of the day, you're only going to know what that looks like by seeing your dog delivering it, and knowing within context of what that looks like, which starts with known trails. So actually looking, when you know it's on and off the trail, what does that look like, so that you can really see what that looks like within their body language. Catherine, nothing specific Harry body language per se, but there isn't a Mantrailing one. And there is a good free PDF on the IMBTI on negatives though, but videos are the best. Super. Any questions from anyone else before we call it a day? Because I'm aware this has been a very long webinar, but I really hope that it's been a useful couple of hours of your if you're evening and you're not sat there going, God, could have had a nice gin tonight. Super. Great webinar. Thanks for it. You're more than welcome. I hope you found it really interesting. It sounds like you have found it interesting and useful. I'll try and get the video analysis done maybe tomorrow, because I'll have to commentate over the top of it again, and it's getting late now. So I'll try and do the video up and do the commentary over the top and post it somewhere where you can all get like a YouTube link or something like that, just so you can look back over it. It's a shame that you didn't get to see it fully. I think some of you might have and some of you didn't by the sounds of the comments, depending on what device and stuff you were on, but we'll get the full thing anyway. Someone's also suggested Jeff Shetland, Straightest Path, great book, explains a lot about trailing behaviour. Cool. Awesome. Super. Right, we'll end it there then, guys. Thanks for joining us. We've had a really nice chat there, I think, and we'll see you, well, we'll post it in the group and hopefully see you at a future webinar.